Have you ever felt that just frustrating disconnect between what you know is right and what you actually end up doing? It feels like a civil war in your own heart, right? Well, in this explainer, we're diving headfirst into one of the most honest passages in all of Scripture to really get a handle on this conflict, Romans 7 and the war within. Now, listen, this isn't some rebel confessing his defiance. This is the Apostle Paul, a giant of the faith, just laying his soul bare for everyone to see. He's describing that gut-wrenching struggle of a believer who genuinely loves God's law and wants to do what's right, but finds himself doing the very things he despises. This isn't hypocrisy, folks. This is the honest cry of an inner conflict we all know too well. And that confession, right there, it frames this entire struggle. We're calling it the war within, this intense battle where your own will feels like it's literally fighting against itself. It's a powerful and kind of humbling reminder that just knowing the truth doesn't automatically mean you'll be able to live it out. So, what is the core issue here? I mean, Paul isn't saying he lacks desire or that he needs more information. The man wrote a huge chunk of the New Testament. The problem, he says, is a lack of power. And you've got to see that distinction is absolutely everything. Desire isn't transformation. Agreeing with the truth is not the same as obedience. And knowledge, well, knowledge just isn't strength. Okay, this leads to the million-dollar question, doesn't it? If it's a power issue, why can't we just muster up more willpower, Why can't we just grit our teeth and try harder to overcome it all? Because, and this is the hard truth, the try harder method simply doesn't work. Relying on your own self-effort and willpower is kind of like trying to fuel your car with good intentions. It might get you a few feet down the road, but it is a flawed strategy that always leads to burnout. Why? Because self-effort always exhausts itself. And to really understand why willpower fails, let's look at this quote. It talks about these deep-seated desires inside all of us. Now, they aren't inherently bad, but man, they can become traps, luring us in even when every alarm bell in our head is screaming no. Let me give you an analogy. Imagine you're trying to get a dog into a crate that it absolutely hates. But you know what that dog loves? Cheese. So you throw a piece of cheese into the very back of that crate. The dog knows the crate is a trap, but its desire for the cheese is so powerful that it just dives in anyway. It gets the cheese, it turns around, and clank. The door shuts. The devil does the exact same thing with us. He uses the cheese of our own desires to lure us into traps we know we should avoid. And this is exactly why our own effort is never enough. Think about it. Motivation, that's just emotional energy, and it gets totally drained by one bad day. Guilt, that doesn't empower you, it just weighs you down. And willpower, oh man, it gets exhausted by stress, by fatigue, by the hundreds of decisions we have to make every single day. Self-effort is a battery that always runs out of juice. So this brings us to a really critical shift in perspective. This internal struggle, it isn't just about managing a few bad habits or trying to improve your self-discipline. We are in a spiritual battle. This is bigger than just us. The Bible is crystal clear on this. Our real fight isn't against flesh and blood. It's not even against our own weaknesses. We wrestle against spiritual forces, against a real, scheming adversary who has an actual agenda to take us out. This is not a metaphor, people. This is the reality of the war we're in. And here's how the enemy operates. He looks for a foothold. It's a military term, right? Like a beachhead in an invasion. He finds one small, seemingly innocent area of your life where you think, it's not that big of a deal. He establishes a welcome position right there, and from that single foothold, he begins to advance and take more and more territory. So, if you're in a spiritual war, you can't win with physical weapons. It just doesn't work. Fighting a spiritual battle requires spiritual weapons. You simply cannot bring a knife to a drone fight. The world's strategy is always going to be more rules, more motivation, more self-effort. The very things that we already know fail. But spiritual weapons, they look completely different. They look like humility, prayer, and ultimately, surrender. And let's be really clear about humility. Humility is not a feeling of being small or worthless. It is a chosen posture. It's bending the knee. It's looking yourself in the mirror and having the guts to finally admit, I ain't got this. I cannot do this on my own. And that admission, that's the beginning of real strength. This is the journey that Romans 7 takes us on. See, it's not an excuse to keep sinning. It's a diagnosis of our condition. And that diagnosis points us away from all our self-effort and toward the only real solution there is, surrender and dependence. You see, true strength, the kind of power that actually wins the war within, it doesn't come from puffing out your chest and just trying harder. It starts when you bow your knee. Surrender isn't weakness, it is the gateway to real power. So, look, if you feel this war raging inside of you, please don't be discouraged. That struggle doesn't disqualify you. It's actually a signpost. It is revealing exactly where your reliance has to shift, away from your own exhausted effort and onto a power so much greater than yourself. If you take away just one thing from this entire explainer, please let it be this. Good intentions, willpower, motivation, they are not the fuel for transformation. The Spirit of God is. That's the source of power that Paul was so desperately looking for. You see, Paul's cry in Romans 7 isn't a cry of despair. It's a cry of desperation that leads straight to deliverance. He asks, "Who will rescue me?" And he finds the answer. The source of rescue is available to all of us. So the real question for us is, in this war within, who will we rely on, ourselves or him?